For example, the scale of sexuality. Level 2 on that scale, it's a very high level, is take it or leave it. There are people whose attitude towards sex is they can take it or leave it. That's a very liberating space to be, okay? So that's why I called it. The level is called take it or leave it. Now, that's not a very graceful thing to call it, but it communicates to people. When somebody reads that, they get it. Okay, this guy can take sex or leave sex. He's in a very free position. So each of the levels is very carefully stated.
Welcome to another episode of What's Up with DJ, and I'm your host, DJ. Each week I bring you topics about current events, career development, finance, holistic living, life hacks, and stories of inspiration and humor, all from a spiritual perspective. So be sure to follow, subscribe, like, share, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Your opinions and comments are always encouraged and appreciated. With that being said, let's get right into the show. My guest this week is Jim Marshall. He's a polymathic scholar and the author of the book Septemics. During our conversation, we will talk about Septemics and how it can save you from catastrophe, disasters, bankruptcies, divorces, arrests, indictments, and all other kinds of things, because it will forewarn you by using skills, and it also will tell you about the kind of person you are dealing with. Jim graduated from St. Francis Xavier College Prep in New York City at 17, entering the Manhattan University School of Engineering. He received his Bachelor of Science cum laude from the City University of New York at age 22. He spent over 40 years as a successful personal counselor and facilitator. Jim has devoted over 50,000 hours to studying and practicing multiple dimensions of human potential and development. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, David. Glad to be here.
Oh, glad you are. So you are born and raised in New York City. So how does a young man from New York City decide to pursue a career in satimics?
I was not really looking for it. I was looking for results for my clients. And this data just fell out in front of me as a result of my successful work with them. So that's how Septemics came to be. As for calling it Septemics, the last thing that happened before I published it was putting the name Septemics on it, because I had to call it something.
But you had no name for it before then. You didn't have like a working title?
Name that wasn't as good. But you have to realize that I worked on this book for 25 years. In early 96, I gave the original transcript to colleagues of mine, all of whom had elite graduate degrees, and they all had extremely positive responses. That verified what I believed was that I had discovered a new subject that was based in natural law. So then I spent 25 years perfecting this to a point where any normal human being can take this book, if he can read English, and improve his life. And that's what this is about.
Yeah. So improving life.
It doesn't really matter what area of life we're talking about. It doesn't matter whether your problem is romantic, financial, physiological, whatever's going on with your life, this book can help you to resolve it. Because there are 35 scales now. Each one is unique. So the result is that this subject is universally applicable, meaning it will dramatically improve the life of anyone who takes advantage of it.
So I was saying in the intro that Semantics, your book now available, Septemics. I kind of remember how to say it by the month September. It kind of reminds me of the word of the and I mean in sept, like, doesn't it mean 8? You know, is it 8 or 9?
Septem in Latin is 7.
Okay. And so
So
how
seven.
does 7
Well,
come back?
every scale has 7 levels. And I
Got it.
explain to them why it's 7. It's a mathematical explanation, which makes perfect sense because this is natural law. You have to realize I discovered this empirically. There's no theory here. I just took what I discovered and put it into a form where people could digest it and make their lives better.
Yeah. So how can it make lives better?
Well, I
Just give me an
discovered
example. So give me an example. So I'm just a guy out here trying to make my life make sense, and
Okay.
I need and things are not working out, and I come across your book. How can that me reading your book help me?
Okay, well, let me give you 2 answers. I'll give you a specific answer and I'll give you a general answer. Let's say a guy has romance problems, right? Relationship problems. Who doesn't have that, right? So there are at least 4 scales in the book that address that. There's a scale of relationships. There's a scale of sexuality. There's a scale of permeation. Permeation is what creates love. There's a scale of allegiance. When relationships deteriorate, it's because the allegiance deteriorates. So a guy who has any type of relationship problem can use any one of those 4 scales, find his level, and he could also find his spouse's level. And the beauty of this system is that once you know your level, you can improve your level by moving up 1 level. So you have improved your condition from whatever level you're at to the next higher level. Let's say you're at level 4, you improve to level 3. Once you're stable at level 3, you can improve to level 2 and so forth. So that's an example of a common usage. Now, of course, you would have to look at each of these 4 scales to see what they're about and how they work. But it's all explained very clearly in the book. It's not mysterious. Now, the other thing is, if I were to ask some guy on the street, what level is the relationship between you and your wife? The guy would have no answer for that. He would say, well, there could be thousands of answers to that. Well, you see, I have reduced it to 7 answers. Each of the 35 scales has only 7 levels. So you're not going through hundreds or thousands of possibilities. You're selecting from among 7. I did the heavy lifting of figuring out what the 7 are. So, for example, the scale of motivation. There are 7 basic human motivations. Okay? Now, all the others are subsets of these. So, because of that, it's not hard to find your level, and it's not hard to find somebody else's level. So, it's very user-friendly. So, that's the specific answer. Now, let me give you a more general answer.
Okay.
I discovered hitherto unknown natural phenomena which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I constructed a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics and published in the book called Septemics Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. Now, it's already been established over 26 years of experience that this book would dramatically improve the life of anyone who takes advantage of it. Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to human beings occur in a sequence of 7 levels. Septemics comprises a collection of scales or sequences, each of which breaks down various human phenomena into a hierarchy of 7 steps. There are 35 such scales, 24 of which apply primarily to individuals, and 11 of which apply primarily to groups. I wrote this book to help people. Each of these 35 scales provides the user with an infallible way of determining the salutariness or beneficialness of any group, individual, or activity. If the group, individual, activity moves persons up these scales, it's beneficial or positive. If it moves them down, it's detrimental or negative. This is what you were talking about in the intro when you talked about preventing catastrophes and disasters and bankruptcies and indictments, because you can use this as a lens to look at a person or a group and see, what are these people actually doing? It's not that hard to do. You find the level, and then you can figure out by observation, are they moving people up scales or down scales? And it tells you if you want to associate them or not.
Mhm.
Now,
So my question is this: so you've been helping people, over years. You have 50,000 hours of studying and practicing, and 40 years of counseling. Do you have any examples of people that you have helped? Specific examples of people that you have counseled and coached and helped and mentored with Septemics that have improved their life?
I use this all the time. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
I know the basic purpose of every president of the United States, going back as far as Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I also know the basic purpose of many presidents previous to Roosevelt, who I studied, like Lincoln, Washington, and Jefferson. What could be more important than knowing someone's basic purpose? So I am rarely surprised or fooled by anybody. Like, for example, if I look at Donald Trump, I know his basic purpose, and therefore nothing he does surprises me.
So what is his basic purpose? Well, you did say when we first spoke that you don't like analyzing people who are alive, right? So,
it's not that I don't like analyzing them. I don't give the levels because I don't think it's ethical for me to do that. But
why is it not ethical? Why is it not ethical for you to do that? I'm just to know.
Okay, first of all, what helps individuals, which is my motivation, is to get them to find it themselves. Get the guy, and I can give you lots of examples how to do that. Get the guy to look at it, and he'll find his level on that scale if he studies it. And again, this is not a big thing. It's like 5 pages. And that will enlighten him. And then you'll be able to get him to move up one level, and you have improved the person. He's operating at a higher level. So that's what helps people. Now, telling people who they are, what they are, that offends people. So it's not fair because I have this advantage. I have this knowledge that I can use on people, which I use continuously to analyze people. But publicizing it is not fair. It's not right.
Okay, but you would have that conversation if we was having a private conversation. You would have any problem with just being that this is recorded. You wouldn't want to do that. Okay, right. I can now understand.
Because you see, this book solves one of the greatest problems that human beings have, which is the gradient problem. In order to improve a person, it has to be done on a gradient. Nobody can lose 100 pounds, but you can lose 1 pound 100 times. If you're going to train a guy, you can't just give him 100 pounds and say, work with this. That's bad training. You have to find out how much can he curl with one arm? Can he curl 20? Can he curl 15? And if he can curl 20, how many can he do? Can he do 5? Can he do 8? So that's what good training is about. Now, every good teacher, facilitator, counselor, psychotherapist on earth understands gradients. You have to pick up the guy where he is and ask him to do something that he can do. You see? So that's what this is. This solves that because it's in the scales. So I was doing that with my clients for decades, hundreds of clients, moving them up scales. Now, originally, I didn't know they were going up scales. I just knew they were getting better because I didn't know there were scales. But they started presenting themselves to me, and eventually it turned into this book. So I'm going from helping people by the hundreds, helping people by the millions.
Yeah, well, to me, I definitely, if you're saving me from a disaster, which I would suspect that the way that you are saving someone from a disaster, one of the ways, if you are making friends, if you are inviting people into your life, even if, as me as a career coach, before you even take a job, sometimes you need to look for the signs that this would be advantageous or disadvantageous, or so I think that's a great thing to be able to forewarn, foresee, positive or negative things before they happen.
Exactly. Because it's not that hard to spot people on these scales. Okay. I never met any president of the United States, but I did listen to them. I did watch them. I did read what they wrote, so I'm informed. And because of that, I could spot them on certain scales. So that's, once you know the material, it's not that hard to do. Actually, I find that you can find somebody in a bracket in seconds. In other words, I can talk to a guy for 15 seconds and I can say, okay, this guy, he's either at 3, 4, or 5. I've already eliminated 4 of the levels. So then as I talk to him, I could narrow it down. Okay, this guy's at level 4. So I know who I'm talking to. So as a historical example, if the people of Germany had this book in 1933, the Nazis never would have come to power because Hitler's basic purpose was to destroy. If you study him, it's clear. He was intentionally, inherently destructive. Pol Pot was the same way, okay? So when people like that take over, it's a catastrophe. Millions of innocent people die. Now, anybody who studies this would see, okay, this guy, they would spot him on the scale and say, okay, I don't want to vote for this guy. Now, would he have gotten some votes? Of course. He would have gotten votes from psychopaths and sociopaths and criminals and crazy people and corrupt people and things like that. But that's not enough to get 37% of the vote, which is what they got, which was a plurality in their system, which brought them to power. So this could have prevented a catastrophe if people had this book. So I'm trying to get it into the hands of people so they can use this information, because I know absolutely that these scales are correct. In the same way that I know that the Pythagorean theorem is correct, in the same way that I know that the periodic table of elements is correct. It is axiomatically correct. Now, you might quibble with the wording. You might say, well, why did you call it this? And of course, that's where the art comes in, trying to express it in a way that makes sense to people. For example, the scale of sexuality. Level 2 on that scale, it's a very high level, is take it or leave it. There are people whose attitude towards sex is they can take it or leave it. That's a very liberating space to be, okay? So that's why I called it. The level is called take it or leave it. Now, that's not a very graceful thing to call it, but it communicates to people. When somebody reads that, they get it. Okay, this guy can take sex or leave sex. He's in a very free position. So each of the levels is very carefully stated. Also, it's important to note there's a glossary before every chapter. So I'm defining the terms for you. So there's no mystery. What does he mean by this word? You just read the glossary. There's even a glossary for the introduction, which is the longest section of the book. So this helps people. The average person who can read English can get this book by itself and improve his life. The only thing you might need in addition is a dictionary. But now everybody's got a dictionary on their phone.
Yeah,
or on
you
their
have
iPad.
a smartphone. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So there's no reason, people. There's no reason not to have a good vocabulary.
Right. I have been involved in education my entire life since the age of 3.
Oh, great.
So I have a very clear idea how to educate people. And so all of that went into this book as far as writing it in a way that would connect with people. So it's not, this is not just for college professors and intellectuals and academics. It's for the average guy. And that's why it took 25 years to perfect. Because, for example, when Einstein presented his general theory and specific theory of relativity, he presented it in a paper to his peers. He was writing for other scientists. When Newton invented calculus in the Principia, one of the most famous books ever written, he was writing for other scientists and mathematicians, okay? That's much easier than what I did here. I didn't want to do that. I wanted this to be for the people because the government's not going to help you. The universities are not going to help you. The churches are not going to help you, okay? The corporations are not going to help you. They all have a life of their own, and the people in them are serving various masters. They're not serving you. When I worked with my clients for all those years, I was serving one person, the client, nobody else. And that's one of the reasons I had so much success. I was there to help this person. Now, this book I've created in a way that it wraps around the person. It's like you go into a store, right, to buy a suit. There's like 1,000 suits there. So you look at the rack, you say, okay, well, I don't want gabardine, I want velour, and you go to the right size, you try, and eventually you find one that fits you, right? And it wraps around you. That's how this works. It's very specific. It's tailored to the person. So what you're studying here is you. You're learning about you and you're learning about other people. Okay. So it's very user-friendly.
User-friendly. Definitely user-friendly is a good thing. Well, I wanted one more last question before we close the conversation now. One of the questions you said earlier about psychopaths and sociopaths. And how can will this book benefit a sociopath or a psychopath? I mean, how is it going to help me to identify a sociopath or a psychopath?
Well, yes, it will definitely help you to identify them. But the book is not going to help them. Those people are not interested in self-improvement. That's why they're the way they are. This book would never be of benefit to Al Capone or John Gotti or Charles Manson. Okay, it would be a benefit to you, but there are people who are below this book because they're not interested in improving themselves. You see, when you find yourself on a level, a light bulb goes on over your head. There's insight. You say, I see. This is what I've been doing. Okay, this makes sense to me. And then you can move yourself up to the next level, which is just as easy to understand and might take some work to get up there. But somebody who's a psychopath or sociopath or even a narcissist, they're not going to use this book. First of all, they're not going to read it. Even if they did read it, it wouldn't make any sense to them. They don't want books. They want custom-made suits and drugs and alcohol and women. That's what those people. Okay?
Right.
So obviously they're not my public, but I have calculated that 57% of the human race does want to improve himself or his life. And that's who this book will help. The problem is, it's already known, all right, by mental health professionals, therapy, no matter who the therapist is, will not help a psychopath or sociopath. It doesn't work on them. They all, that's a fact. Okay.
Because I think a narcissistic personality disorder and a person who suffers from narcissistic personality disorder, and there's an overlappment, I think, in a psychopath and a narcissistic personality disorder. There's sort of, there's some overlappment in what those issues are. So, like you said, they just wouldn't be interested in reading a book like that. They would think it's all rubbish anyway. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't be motivated. They say, get out of here with this book. Tell me what stock I can buy on, that I make $1 million. That's what they're interested in, Where can I get some cocaine? That's what they're interested in. Yeah. They don't want to improve themselves. And so that's why they are the way they are.
Yeah.
But most of us are not like that.
Thank God that most of us are not like that. But there are lots of people that are, and I'm quite sure people who are listening know someone who may not suffer from narcissistic personality disorder, but they definitely suffer from narcissistic traits. But if you're not narcissistic or you're not a sociopath or a psychopath, then maybe you need to read the book Septemics. Where can I find your book? Where can I buy the book Septemics?
Well, it's very easy to find the book. If you type the word Septemics into a search engine, we get hundreds of answers, including all the people who are selling it. But of course, Amazon and Barnes and Nobles, it's easy to find. Now, the word is Septemics. So I invite your listeners to go to septemics.com because there you can see what readers have said about it, what people have written about it, what the reviews are, and you can even read sections of the book to find out what is this about. It is a new subject. A book like this has never existed before. So I invite you to look into it and use it to help your life.
Yes.
That's my
Yes, and like you said, you can go. I went to the website, satimics.com, and I downloaded, I think it was the first chapter, if not mistaken. And so that you can definitely maybe incorporate a little bit of satimics into your life before you actually buy the entire book and begin, because I enjoy personal development, and I think that that we all need to try to become better human beings. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you coming to the show and discussing with me the new concept of septemics. Maybe in a few years, maybe this will be something that is a part of pop culture. Maybe the masses have, and maybe you'll be up there with Einstein, you know, and I can say, yeah, Jim Marshall, he was on my show. Now we're studying him in colleges. So, yeah.
Right. Well, I hope so. I mean, that's what I'm about. I had a lifetime of helping people, and when I discovered this, I realized this could help millions of people, millions and millions. And that's what I want. I want everybody. You can get it in a hardbound, softbound, and ebook. The ebook is cheap, so It's not a big investment. And the beauty of it is, once you get the book, you don't need anything else. You don't need to pay any money. You don't need to join a group. You don't need to go anywhere. You just can work with the book and improve your life. Yes, and it's been working for 26 years.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, DJ. It was a pleasure.
All right, take care.
Have a nice day.